the golden grail of information, the ultimate video. So you've heard of witchcraft, magic, or spirituality from maybe a friend's post or a TV show or pop culture or anywhere. But how do you actually get started? This video should hopefully take somebody with a general interest and get them ready to start researching and doing what feels comfortable for them. First, some definitions. And I don't want to give the impression that these are total, exact, and only definitions because there's a ton of overlap with these. I'm just trying to give the best impression of what each group kind of stands out in and what most people seem to agree on in the group. First is witchcraft, whether that's Wicca, Druid, or traditional. And that really focuses on your relationship with nature and sometimes spirits. Using the properties of them to help aid you in your life, to help deepen your understanding and just intuition with everything. Second is esoteric magic, whether it's the Lama, chaos magic, Freemasons, things along those sorts of lines. It's all about your relationship and connection with energies, knowledge and wisdom, and using the tools of your mind to explore what's possible and unlock your true potential. While spirituality can be like light working or Buddhism or just kind of general new agey, your happiness, your contentness, how you fit into things, what your meaning is and why you're here. So like I said, these are not exact definitions, but I'm thinking maybe at least one or two people kind of have a vague idea of what they want, and that'll help find which one to kind of start research with. And next, we're actually going to go with tips. This was a section I had very last, but I thought it would be actually kind of best up front here so we can kind of orient ourselves with what we're talking about here. So number one, don't worry about getting it right. There's no right way to do anything. There's no code book handed to us from the universe or from the creator of humanity, unless you're religious and believe that. So just do what makes sense to you, and if it works, it works. Similarly, number two, don't worry about how it works. Don't try to pinpoint it. Don't worry about it. Form a vague concept and see what works and come up with how. Whether you think it's psychology or energy or deities, it really shouldn't matter. Faith is not a requirement, but I would say curiosity may be. Don't think there's no way this could fail, but rather focus on all the ways that it could have an impact, what little things it actually could change. Tip number three, make small incremental changes over big ones. Setting a goal to, for example, maybe say thank you once more per day, whether it's to the universe, nature, other humans, that's a lot more realistic and therefore a lot more powerful than, for example, setting a goal to meditate 30 minutes a day. Or getting into the habit of sending out intentions and affirmations like, I'm going to get this job, I'm going to kick butt, or you will get better soon. That's a lot more realistic and attainable goal than trying to collect all these items that are kind of quote needed to do a spell. This number four here is probably the least intuitive piece of advice, and the one I don't see get talked about enough. Experience in this realm is not linear. Every failure is a secret success, and you won't realize it. So, I guess to give you an example, when you start doing something like art, your first drawing usually isn't greatest. And even though you don't feel like you're progressing between any given drawing, usually when you look back over time, you can kind of see a clear linear progression of this is me getting better over time. In magic and witchcraft and spirituality, that's not how it works. You'll feel stagnant, you'll feel stagnant, and then all of a sudden you realize that you're up here. And that's just kind of how it works. It's very very sudden changes, very drastic changes in perspective that give you the advancement. So if it feels like you're failing, if it feels like you're not getting anywhere, that's because you don't realize where you're getting ahead in. That being said, always feel free to take a break and come back. You'll probably have phases where you're real into it for 3 months, and then you don't think about it for 3 months, and then you're into it for a week, and then you don't think about it for a year, and then you're into it and that's completely cool and normal. This next one, number 5, is a bunch of just kind of random comments, random tips. I sarcastically called them here my 10 commandments. Here we go. Rapid fire. Find out what it means to be at home. Find out what your home is, make a home, and make it your own. Trust your gut. Stand up for what's right. Follow your heart. Speak your mind. Indulge your imagination. Listen to your intuition, like really sit and listen. Pay attention to everything. What's going on, what influences what causes what causes people to react, and what causes things to happen. Take a leap. Don't be afraid to imagine and tear down your entire worldview. And I don't just mean in that in like kind of the positive, like believe you can do anything, but I also mean that in the negative. Realistically, you can't do everything. So if you set out with all these wondrous expectations, don't be afraid to one day realize that you're kind of off the beaten path a little bit. And then 10, remember where you came from. This is important because you never want to become a clone of another religion or another tradition or another path. If you ever think somebody has the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, then you're probably mistaken. Remember where you came from, what you originally believed, and how you would reconcile that. Tip number 6, find the magic in everyday life. Some energies to follow: creativity, compassion, love, passion, and wonder. And tip number 7, the last one for this section, never take things seriously. I think laughter is the biggest missing ingredient for most people's practices. I like the quote from Alan Watts: practice with sincerity, not with seriousness. Anytime you find yourself, focused or trying to determine what's, in one of those states of mind where you're just too serious about everything, just have a good laugh and remember it doesn't matter. So now, where do we even start? First, read, research, expand. Find different paths, theories, cultures, religions, watch YouTube videos, find different articles online until you find something that you vibe with, that you think you want to learn more about, and then learn more about it. Number 2, start noticing your own thoughts, emotions, reactions, and dreams. There's a lot that goes on internal. Focus on that. The third thing to do when you're starting is to start keeping a journal. Write down insignificant things that you think, see, whatever, when you look back over time, there are things you learn by looking back that may provide more insight to what was going on at the time and how you can use that in the future. Number 4 thing to do when you're starting is to just start working with energies. I would recommend to either choose the chakras, the astrology signs, or the planetary energies. To pick one and start working with, to try to memorize what they kind of mean and to start trying to identify them in your daily life. Just the action of sensing, interpreting, and dealing with energies is a very powerful thing. The 5th thing to do when you're getting started is to start forming relationships with things you haven't really thought about forming relationships with before. With your life. How does life treat you? How does the universe treat you? How does nature treat you? How does it feel? And when you inspect and try talking to them and forming a relationship with them, you may be surprised. The second would be with deities or energies, if that's something you connect with, if that's something you want to pursue when you're first starting off. The third, a more spiritual route, would be to form a relationship with your higher self or wisdom, like wisdom itself. And of course, probably the most important thing for any practitioner to form a relationship with is themselves. Pay attention to your wants, needs, and desires. Hold yourself accountable. Grow, but have fun. Get to know who you are and what you like and enjoy. In this section, I'm going to give you some good starters for finding spells and rituals and stuff like that are pretty easy for a beginner. The first, I would say, are psychology-based spells. Definitely for skeptics. This is going to be your first go-to. You can look this up if you're interested. There was a study done that showed the placebo effect made itself real. To kind of elaborate on what that means, people who took a placebo, knowing it was a placebo, but also knew the placebo effect was a thing, ended up having it work. Essentially, even if you treat magic as a placebo, if you believe it works, you might be surprised with what happens. So try psychology spells. I'll be more confident. I'll be more funny. I'll be more charismatic. And then just start to stretch it from there. I'll attract the right type of people in my life, etc., etc. The second thing to definitely give a good try, something I don't see talked about anywhere near enough, is shields. Especially for empaths, especially for a lot of the people I see getting into it nowadays. Who are very open to energies, very susceptible to other people's energies, would be a shield. Magic shields to shield yourself from other people's energies. Usually just a good mantra or a good hand sign, whatever it is, can definitely help people with giving themselves a sense of peace from others' energies. The third one I'm going to recommend, although the first one I would say some people recommend, is going to be banishing rituals or casting circles, etc., etc. I know me, when I started off, I did not really see the purpose for them, and so just being realistic, that's why they're third. As you get more experienced and you're doing longer and more drawn out spells and you're dealing with more powerful energies, you're going to have to become more and more aware of banishing rituals and circles and keeping the energies where they need to be and not having them lingering in you throughout your day. So a good practice is always to learn a good one of those of your choice. There's the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, general Wiccan casting circles. That's not something I do, so I don't have too much information on that. But generally, it's just a feeling to invoke peace, magic, and cleanliness. And then the fourth type of magic to start with, I would say, is divination. Whether it be tarot, runes, pendulum, scrying, no matter what. There's tons of information out there about divination, and it's definitely one of the most fun to get into. And lastly, I'll mention deities. They're definitely very intuitive to work with if you do have that connection, but they're not always the most approachable if you're not familiar. Essentially, just don't worry about it. If you want to work with them, work with them. If you don't. It's not necessary. And so, like I said, hopefully if you have a general interest, you at least now have enough confidence to hopefully start researching something, making those small incremental changes, just getting to know people, joining groups, having conversations, and learning. And before you know it, people will be asking you questions. So, if you guys learned anything, I'd really appreciate if you'd subscribe and like the video. And that'll be all. I'll see you around.